Hello, I'm Charlotte Cohen and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Friday 19th of December. And we can expect a dramatic weekend of Premiership action.
We had a good performance, but we didn't score all the opportunity that we had. So this is the reality, Royaling.
The embattled Wilfried Nancy faces an improving Aberdeen on Sunday. And what game we've got lined up on Sunday afternoon at Tynecastle.
Gives Rangers a lead. It's against the run of play.
As Kingsley goes for goal! What a goal! Oh, what a strike that is!
Can league leaders' Hearts inflict a first league defeat on Danny Roll's Rangers? And there's 4 pulsating Premiership matches on Saturday, including Dundee United hosting Hibs.
For goal! Oh, what a finish! Zach Sapsford! Dundee United euphoria! That is an absolute stunner from Sapsford!
We'll guide you through all of this weekend's action.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, alongside me this morning, Scottish football writer Moira Gordon. Moira, how are you doing this fine Friday morning?
I'm wonderful, thank you, Charlotte.
Good stuff. And also Rory Loy, wandering striker. Rory, are you looking forward to this weekend?
I am indeed. I like the fact there's plenty of 3 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday, the traditional way of doing things, leading up to 2 huge games on Sunday.
Yes, it will be good. So let's just start off with Aberdeen's visit to Celtic Park, the story of the week. Wilfried Nancy, 4 games, 4 defeats. The strange story of his social media, fans furious, all the stuff going on in the background in the boardroom. Moira, how do you even begin to make sense of all of this?
You could begin, but it'll take you a while to start and get the end of it, that's for sure. It's a club that seems a bit in disarray, obviously, and you need, when things are going bad off the pitch, you need something to be cheerful about on it, and there's nothing there either. So it's just, I'm not sure where they get the foothold almost in this season. They need to actually just find a way of getting getting some sort of result that'll paper over cracks happening elsewhere. But you look at it and you're wondering where it's come from. Nobody's betting. The fact that there were so many bets went on Dundee United the other night, so many people that were confident that there could be an upset there, tells you the story. That wouldn't have happened over the last few seasons, so it's just, it's messy. It's very messy, and I'm not quite sure exactly how they're going to fix it at this moment in time.
And particularly the system and the formation that Nancy is choosing to play and being very adamant that he is not budging from, coming under a bit of scrutiny. Although they started really well on Wednesday against Dundee United, looked really good going forward, but one recognised centre-back on the pitch, Rory, I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster almost.
Yes, and first and foremost, the social media stuff for me doesn't get mentioned if Wilfried Nancy had won the cup final and at least one of the league games. In terms of the formation, he's now in between a rock and a hard place, because I think he's got to swallow his pride and go 4-3-3. I think he's got to try and get some results. However, to bring in a manager based on his style of play and the way he plays, which seems a bit crazy from the board anyway, given Celtic don't have the players to accommodate that system at this moment in time. I think he's got to swallow his pride. He's got to. But how proud is he? We're not quite sure. We'll find out on Sunday. However, I think if he continues to persevere with this system, there's so many players playing out of position that look uncomfortable. And a big concern for me is, against Hearts, they actually started well for half an hour. Derek McInnes tweaked a couple of things. Nancy had no reply. Against St Mirren, they got back in the game and went to 1 each. They were the better team towards the end of the first half. Stephen Robinson tweaks a couple of things at half-time. Nancy has no answer. Gets to the game against Dundee United. They blow Dundee United away in the first half, should be out of sight. Jim Goodwin changes a few things at half-time, which, to be honest, weren't. I mean, bringing Savelge on at right centre-back helped massively. At right kind of centre-back, right back, and he stopped Maeda's threat. But all he did really was put a bit more emphasis on putting Celtic under pressure and getting closer to them. And once again, Nancy had no answer.
Well, they were talking about this on SportsSound on Wednesday night, actually, because there was this question of, is this Nancy not fully understanding Scottish football? And is this because he's come from the MLS and he doesn't know, as you say, he doesn't know how to deal with these Scottish teams when they make these changes?
If coming from the MLS, you are coming into the Goldfish Bowl of Glasgow, I do think Europe has a similar, a very different feel to it than the MLS. I don't know if you become under pressure quite as quickly and get the same heat from the fans, and he'll be quickly realising that's how it works. Some of his comments are a bit left field as well, which don't help. So look, he's kind of out the frying pan and into the fire in terms of Sunday, because he's back at Parkhead and the home fans will not be happy if they don't start particularly well, especially if he lines up the way he does. Is there an argument to say that he had no idea what he was walking into? I think you've got to base it on the evidence so far and say, absolutely, yeah, he has no idea, and he's not making a particularly great job of handling the media at this moment in time. Some of the things he says suggest that maybe he doesn't really know and understand the right things to say as a Celtic manager. Time will tell if he can turn it around. I actually felt a bit sorry for him against Dundee United because, as it happened with Russell Martin, Celtic fans are now finding any stick to beat him with, whether that's even remotely related to football or not. So we'll see how he goes on Sunday, but on a surely human level, it would be nice to see him get a bit of success.
Yeah, Moira, do you think he's going to be able to turn things around? I mean, if he picks up a win at the weekend, do you think things will maybe start to shift?
I think, as Rory says, a lot's going to come down to how willing he is to try and adapt, whether it's on the pitch and off the pitch. At the end of the day, you can buy yourself some time if you handle the media properly, handle fans properly. He just looks like he looks like a deer in headlights at times at Tynecastle the other night. Rory, I felt a wee bit sorry for him. I thought it was quite interesting seeing how long Jim Goodwin had a little chat with him at the end of it, a word in his ear. I think it was a manager to manager, just feeling a bit sorry for somebody that was out there looking a bit exposed. And I think he's going to have to adapt to that side of it and realise that he's got a big job, and he's going to have an even bigger job now to turn that around, because people have made their mind up about him up very early. But I think on the pitch is where it's going to have to happen, and he is going to have to adapt his tactics, decide that, square pegs and round holes aren't working at the moment, and you can... Long term, you can have your own idea and philosophies, but you've got to make sure you've got the players for it. If you've adopted players that aren't fit for that, then you have to find a way to play to get a result. A result is all that matters at the moment. It really is. And it's not often that Celtic fans will say it's just a result. They want a performance. They want everything else. At the moment, they'll take 3 points and just try and stabilise something until at least January window. And they're going to have to be really clever and astute in that transfer window and actually bring in the guys that Nancy needs, or the guys being hung out to dry.
One of the issues they have been having is at the top end of the pitch. I mean, you mentioned it, Rory, the performance against Dundee United in the first half was actually very good at points. I mean, Johnny Kenny missed a few golden opportunities, Daz Maeda as well. I mean, what can you do if your strikers aren't finishing these chances? I mean, they could have potentially been 3 or 4-0 up at half time.
Well, that's one element that Wilfried Nancy can't control. Yes, you can go and do your finishing and training this week and work on finishing. However, and I don't want to be too hard on Johnny Kenny because I've been there trying to break through it. One of the old firm teams. It's not easy at all. Johnny Kenny's had a lot of opportunities and he's done well to a point. But against Dundee United, he's got to put the game out of sight. He simply has to put the game out of sight. That being said, they were still 1-0 up at half-time, so the game's got to be managed a lot better. When Jim Goodwin puts his midfield a lot closer to the defensive structure of Celtic at goal kicks, when they're playing out from the back, Celtic have got to find a way to deal with that. And the problem is, when it's all going your way and it's plain sailing and in the first half and you're dominating the game, that's great. But when a team comes out and puts you under pressure, that's when it becomes apparent. Players don't really know their positions, they don't really know where to move. Once again, when Liam Scales came on in the second half, he was playing as a left winger. He was a left centre back and he was overlapping, and 2 or 3 of his crosses went, way over everybody in the box, which is no slight on Liam Scales at all. He's been fantastic for Celtic for a long period of time now, but he's not a winger. So I just think it's a recipe for disaster if he wants to continue to do what he's doing.
And Aberdeen will probably be looking at this, looking at the cup final, looking at the game against United and thinking, this is a real opportunity for us here. I mean, they lost in Europe last night. It was a dead rubber game anyway. But do you think, Moira, that's going to impact them going into the game this weekend?
I don't think their European result will impact them too much. As you say, it was a dead rubber. It was a game that didn't really matter too much. It's now the focus, and I mean, Jimmy Tilley's made this clear that the focus is now back on the league. The European games have done and dusted. They would have loved the result, but it wasn't going to happen. So I think what will have a bigger impact is actually Celtic's result at Dundee United. I think teams will go in against Celtic now believing that they have a chance. It's not that Celtic are a terrible team suddenly, but they're suddenly gettable. So I think Aberdeen will be looking at that and thinking, right, we can, they're in a decent run of form domestically, so they'll be sitting thinking, right, okay, we can have a go at Celtic. There's a weakness there to be exploited, and let's see how they cope with the pressure. As Rory said, teams, when they actually pile on the pressure on Celtic at the moment and make it difficult for them, make them have to make decisions, play out of it, they're finding it a struggle. And I think if Aberdeen can do that, Jimmy Tilley will look and think, yeah, there's definitely, areas of that team that we can exploit.
Aberdeen have a really difficult run after the game against Celtic, play Rangers twice in January. But how important will it be for them, Rory, to kickstart that busy, difficult run with 3 points against a team like Celtic?
Well, Aberdeen have done remarkably well in terms of the points they've gathered in the league over the last period of time. However, this next run of fixtures, as you touch on, Charlotte, playing the likes of Rangers a couple of times, teams in and around them, that's the one that these are the games that will propel them up past, if not in and around, the teams above them. And that's ultimately where Aberdeen aim to be. We want to see Hearts, Celtic, Rangers, Hibs all fighting it out as long as they can deep into the season to see who's going to finish where. If we can add Aberdeen to that mix as well, then all of a sudden we've got the most exciting league in a number of years, decades. So I think if Aberdeen can get through this stretch of fixtures playing the teams that are above them in the league and come out favourably, then all of a sudden people start talking about Aberdeen. Can they finish third? Can they finish fourth? Where are Hibs going to finish? And then what it does do, it's crazy to say, but after January, if Aberdeen can get through that, you start looking at the top six, and the post-split fixtures this year or this season could be phenomenal.
Well, let's look at Sunday's game, Rangers travelling to Hearts. I mean, Moira, it's hard to overstate just how big this game is. I know Celtic are kind of stealing the narrative in the media at the moment, but this is the first time a non-Old Firm team are going to be top of the Premiership at Christmas since 1993. First time it's going to be Hearts in that position since 1991. This is just an absolutely massive game, isn't it?
It's huge. And the thing is, that's the when it comes to challenging for title or being up near the top of the table, every game is huge. That's the pressure that Celtic Rangers are usually under constantly. Hearts are now under that pressure to just keep delivering, where a draw is seen as bubble bursting by outsiders. It shows you what is needed to stay at the top, and it's a huge game because they've already beaten Celtic twice, Rangers already. It's unthinkable almost for us in the modern game to be thinking of a team out with Celtic and Rangers, going up against them and coming out undefeated in the first 4 fixtures against them. So it is a huge game, and we keep saying there's so many times we say this is a statement game for Hearts. If they can win it, it's a real statement. If they can win this one, it is a real statement. If they can beat Celtic and Rangers both times, their first games in the season, and still be up there, obviously, come the new year, then It's massive for them. So, and I think it's like so many teams, if you're winning, it's a winning habit, they enjoy it. And I think that's the case at Hearts at the moment. They're just feeling buoyant. They believe in each other, which is key. Rory will know that. It's a team game. There's times as a good player, you can have the season of your life if you're looking around and the guys around you aren't delivering. But at the moment, they all believe in each other, which is massive, and quite rightly so, because they're getting results. They've had a little dip where it was, draws rather than wins, but it's about now getting back onto that, the winning charge, and if they can do that against Rangers, it's going to be massive for people's real, belief in what can happen, especially as January's coming into, there will be additions in January, we know that, so it'll be really interesting, this game. There's so many games with Hearts this season who they play that you say this will be an interesting one, but it really will be interesting, this one, especially as Rangers aren't any mugs anymore. They've stabilised, they've got the results. They're not easy to beat away from home. I think if they win this, they're going an entire calendar year without losing a league game away from home. It's not an easy feat. So if Hearts can do it, it is a statement win.
Yeah, I think it was 1985 was the last time a team beat the Old Firm back to back in a season. It was Dundee, actually. But Moira, as you mentioned, Rangers have shored things up recently. You'll have seen that yourself, Rory. I mean, they seem to have mastered the art of grinding out results under Danny Rowe.
Yeah, I've heard a few stats over the last week, but I've not heard that one, Charlotte, so well played.
There you go. Thank you.
I've seen that on the socials, which is quite rare. At the weekend, I think it becomes very difficult for Rangers if Hearts win, because 12 points behind them is at this stage of the season. I think when you're in October time and it's 12 points, you always look at the stretch of games that's left and you think there's nothing that's not achievable at that point or can be overturned, whereas I think 12 points going into the new year is a big gap. It also takes them 3 points further ahead of Celtic before they play if Hearts were to win, so Rangers will be very wary of that. I think offensively, Rangers against Falkirk a few weeks ago were non-existent. Then all of a sudden they turn up at Tannadice and look really, really good going forward. They created several opportunities that night, finished 2 each, but very easily could have won the game. Dundee United created several opportunities as well, of course. And then that rolled into the following game where they won comfortably. They scraped a win against Hibs. So they'll be looking at this from a Rangers perspective to say, let's go and get the win, down to 6 points, game in hand, and really push on and, really bunches things up as well. And then we can look forward to the Celtic Aberdeen game. That's what the message will be from the Rangers' point of view. But if they continue to do what they've done over the last bar the Hibs game, couple of games, and Hearts turn up, I think we're not only in for a great game, I think we're in for several goals as well. So which way it drops in terms of the 3 points, I don't think it's an easy one to predict.
Yeah, Rangers defensively have struggled in recent games. I mean, Hearts we've seen have been so good in attack. I suppose, Rory, that's going to be an area where Rangers are going to have to work really hard at the weekend.
Absolutely. The defensive record, you've got Giga and Fernandez back there who, they've got 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games in terms of the league, Rangers. So, it's coming on. It's just, I think Giga's always got a mistake in him. Fernandez is raw. It's not so much necessarily mistakes on the ball with Fernandez. It's more his positional sense at times. He gets caught out. Players kind of playing on the shoulder. He gets attracted to the ball. So, look, I think defending the box with the height of Fernandez and the strength of him and Giga, if they literally, I know it's not a Rangers way of playing, when the ball comes in the box, head it, kick it, clear it, get rid of it. Don't take any chances on the ground when you've got the ball at your feet. They've got the physical attributes. They're not slouches as well. They can cover the grass. I think Danny Rowell's found a way of getting them to work together without John Souttar. However, this will be an acid test for them on Sunday, playing against the likes of Braga, Shankland, Kizarides. So whether they can maintain the same composure and strength of mind on Sunday in that atmosphere, I've played at Tynecastle more than one occasion, and it can be boisterous. So if they can keep their heads in that environment and keep those guys out, then there's every reason to suggest Rangers will score enough goals to win the game. But that's a huge if at this moment in time.
Tune in to the Saturday show from 9 o'clock on Radio Scotland, where the guests include Kenny Miller and Jonathan Watson. Right, well, let's move on to Saturday's games, because Dundee United, fresh from that win over Celtic, they host Hibs. Moira, do you think Dundee United can build a bit of momentum in this game against Hibs? They'd obviously been really struggling, but that win over Celtic is surely going to be a massive boost for them.
It will be a boost for them, but the problem Jim Goodwin's got is that his team don't deliver back-to-back wins. They don't back up a victory with any kind of real authority in the next game. That's been a problem, is that kind of inconsistency this season. So he's going to have to find a way, or the players are going to have to find a way to actually prove that wasn't just a one-off, that they can actually start building something here. And we've said that after a couple of different victories this season, where we've thought, right, this is where they can maybe kick on, and they've not quite done it. They've stuttered again and then got a result a couple of games later. But they need to do it in the moment. As we were talking about earlier, that league's all becoming, it's tight. There's still options there, but we're getting to the nitty-gritty part where you're going to have to start picking up a run of wins to actually keep hold the coattails of the ones above, and actually be really trying to impose yourself on the race for a top 6 place and then onwards. So I think it's finding that consistency. We all know, even within the game, we saw them in the first half, they weren't fantastic. Second half, they brought it to Celtic and they got the rewards for it. So it's about finding that consistency throughout a game and actually backing up one result with another. Whether they can do that, only they know, because there's no point in betting on it when it's Dundee United at the moment, because there is that level of inconsistency. When they perform, they're more than capable of beating Hibs. If they don't, Hibs are more than capable of beating Dundee United this season. So it's a case of which Dundee United turns up.
Elsewhere, Kilmarnock face Falkirk. Obviously, Stuart Kettlewell no longer at Killie. Falkirk have proven that they can do a job this season. Rory, how do you see Kilmarnock getting on in this one?
Well, Falkirk have done a good job this season, and they did a fantastic job over Kilmarnock in the last fixture at the Falkirk Stadium, 3-0 up in the first half. However, Crystal will come in with new ideas. He now has a body of work at Partick Thistle for large spades of times there. He had success, tailed off towards the end where he left the club. But I do think we'll see a resurgent Kilmarnock. I actually don't think they played particularly poorly the last couple of games under Stuart Kettlewell. Slightly unfortunate not to get a result up at Aberdeen in the form of a draw. So, look, I think it'll be a tight one, but Falkirk, who are used to playing on Astro anyway, play good football, and it's a tough one to call, but I think we can say that about every single fixture on the calendar this weekend. But I think Falkirk may just have enough in terms of the style of football they play. John McGlynn's team have been excellent to watch. They've got that the win against Kilmarnock earlier in the season, so I think they might just have enough.
Another team that's been excellent to watch, Motherwell, they face Dundee, who, really struggling, need to kind of start picking up wins. But I suppose, Moira, this is the kind of game for Motherwell that if they want to keep up this challenge for third place, they need to win.
That's right. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, this is a game that earlier in the season they played and it was a draw. It was that period of Motherwell picking up draws and getting plaudits for the performances, but not quite getting all 3 points. I think now they've found the formula for getting the wins and combining that with the performance. And I think, although Dundee, again, there's been moments in games where they've actually looked slightly better than they had. They're not getting over the line. So I think Motherwell will be the stronger team here. I think they'll prove just how much they've kind of moved on from the beginning of the season, where draws and performances were there to actually now victories and performances, and they've proved that they deserve to be up where they are, in the top part of the league. They are one of the main players this season, so I think they'll be too strong for Dundee.
Rory, your cat's trying to get involved. Does it?
Yeah,
does it?
She is. She's wanting her breakfast.
Well, lastly, we'll let you finish up and get away to get the cat her breakfast. But yeah, League Cup winner St Mirren, they host Livingston. Moira, I'll come to you first. How do you see this one going? They've obviously, off the back of that amazing cup win, the players are probably, I suppose, training was maybe the last thing on their mind on Monday, but they've got to get back. The league form hasn't been great. They've got to get their full focus back on picking up the 3 points.
I know. I think Livingston would have been looking at the celebrations after that cup final and thinking, yeah, I'm glad we're up next, in a way, because you're hoping that they've maybe overdone the celebrations slightly. It's twofold. It's one of those things where, yeah, they'll well have been celebrating this week. They have been celebrating this week, but they go into also buoyed as being cup winners, so it could go either way in terms of just being a bit leggy, but they'll also have a bit of a boost, mental boost, that, they are one of the big teams in the league this season. They've got silverware ready in the bag, so they'll go into it probably slightly leggy, but with a real belief. But I think Livingston will look at it and think, one, as a scalp, you always want to go in against winners of the bigger clubs and try and deliver, but also hoping that they've maybe overdone things slightly, and that gives them a bit more of an advantage, because Livingston are needing to pick up points now. We keep saying they're not a terrible team. It's just it's in a season where everybody else has raised their game slightly, so they need to start picking up points, or it's going to start looking a bit, more precarious where they are. We keep thinking there was still so much the league to go, but they need points, so it'll be one that they'll fancy this weekend, I would think.
Well, that is all we've got time for. Many thanks to Moira and Rory, and thank you very much for listening. The weekend football coverage starts tomorrow at 12 on Radio Scotland with Off the Ball. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we'll catch you again very soon.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.